Wow, I can't believe that worked. I've never tried to go inside a video game world before. Hope you guys can hear me from all the way in here. Anyway, I'm sure some of you guys are a bit disappointed by the setting of this video, not to mention the topic of this video, as it's probably not the kind of thing you expect to see on my channel. But when I've got a theory on the mind, I've got to talk about it. And for such a simple, straightforward concept, and one that is as iconic as Super Mario and therefore known so well by so many people, the Super Mario universe is surprisingly suitable for theorization. Go pick any random 5 episodes of MatPat's game theory and there's a pretty decent chance he talked about Mario somewhere in the video. Most Super Mario theories exist to try to explain away some of the weird details present in the series as well as some of the weird behaviors of the characters. For those who are somehow unaware, the basic plot of any given Super Mario title, at least any given main Super Mario title, is that Princess Peach, the ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom where Mario lives sometimes but also sometimes doesn't, or occasionally someone else, is kidnapped by the Koopa King Bowser, and it is up to Mario and whichever friends happen to be on hand with him at the time to traverse a world of varying platform challenges in an attempt to reach Bowser, defeat him, and recover his victim. It's always basically the same. And so far, the people at Nintendo working on the games don't seem to think that we need anything more substantial than that, and I agree, just in terms of gameplay itself. All that you really need to make the games fun is an excuse to run through the platforming challenges. But there are some oddities in-universe that don't really make sense. I mean, yeah, it's a fantasy world, and maybe there is some reason why each of these different regions are set up like platforming challenges. But if there is one, it's never really explained. There are some indications in the original game guide for the original Super Mario Bros. Game that maybe for the sections set in the Mushroom Kingdom, that it is in some way the doing of the population that they created the platform to give you a way to navigate through, despite the fact that Bowser is in control of the kingdom at the time. Once you start to reach areas that are controlled by Bowser and have always been controlled by Bowser, that stops making sense. It starts to seem as if Bowser set up those platforming challenges for you. That rather than just organize 1,000 soldiers from his army at the other end of a bottomless pit too wide for you to jump over, which he could conceivably do considering his resources and his power set, he sets up the regions leading to his castle with increasingly difficult platforming challenges that are just barely not difficult enough for you to automatically fail them. You always have a chance of getting through. Not to mention that even through regions controlled by Bowser, you will find power-ups, which are canonically gifted to Mario by denizens of the Mushroom Kingdom, if not Princess Peach herself. Which means that either Peach anticipates every single time that she's going to be kidnapped and goes out ahead of her kidnapping and leaves power-ups for Mario to find, which honestly, given her attitude towards the whole thing, is kind of possible, I guess. Or Bowser leaves them there himself for Mario to find so that Mario has a better chance of winning. And I know I kind of implied that Peach does anticipate each time she's going to be kidnapped and could leave the power-ups for Mario, but that's not even true in every case. In Super Mario 3D World, it isn't Peach who's kidnapped, it's a random other person, this little fairy-looking guy, and Mario, his brother Luigi, Peach, and her, I don't know what you call him, her servant, I guess, Toad, all decide on a whim to go and save this little fairy person. It was a complete surprise to all of them, and yet there are still power-ups located all throughout the regions that they traverse going forward. This is going to sound like an odd complaint considering that these are video games, but the worlds are set up as if someone is creating a game for Mario to navigate. And while that makes for fun game design, in a game that tries to have any kind of story at all, it just doesn't make sense, as it necessitates that Bowser must want Mario to have a chance to defeat him. And if he really is the big bad, that just doesn't make sense. There's a theory going around that the entire relationship between Mario, Peach, and Bowser is kind of a roleplay that they do, that it's either a game that they play with each other or it's some other similar thing. There are details throughout some of the games that support this idea too. In Super Mario Bros. 3, the background that you play against almost looks like a set, as if someone constructed it on a stage, and Super Mario Bros. 2 turned out to just be a dream by the end. But this theory doesn't quite explain all of the little quirks of this universe. I've come up with an alternative version of the theory that I feel does. The fact of the matter is, all of these oddities in the structure of the game world, as well as the fact that Bowser will sometimes hang out with Mario and Peach and go-kart racing or play tennis, which is weird if they're mortal enemies, can all be explained if the world of Super Mario Bros. In-universe is the fantasy story created by children playing a game. Either playing in character out in a schoolyard or sitting at home playing a tabletop RPG of their own making. Something along those lines. If kids created the characters of Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Bowser, and developed their world so that they could roleplay their way through it, everything starts to make sense. Suddenly, the original Super Mario Bros. Becomes these kids playing on a jungle gym and using their imaginations on top of it to make it something special. Suddenly, Super Mario 2 is one of them getting the idea for a new scenario for them to play through in a dream. 3 is when they construct the obstacle course themselves, etc., etc. It even goes a long way towards explaining in-universe why the characters have various canon appearances. Princess Peach, or Princess Toadstool as she was called at the time of the original game, looked completely different than she does now. I mean, so did Mario, technically, but he gets power-ups that change his color scheme so often, that can be explained away, but Peach really doesn't. Unless she's supposed to be some variation of Fire Peach here, which if she was, I don't understand why she couldn't have just rescued herself. There is no in-universe explanation for why Peach looks so different here. This whole in-universe fiction theory doesn't cover that, unless we assume that someone else is creating these characters in universe and constantly updating the way they look at them, the way they think about them. That explains not only the changing appearances of the characters, but the changing names of the characters as well. It explains the odd ending to Super Mario Odyssey, the newest Super Mario title, where Peach seems completely nonplussed by both her kidnapping and her rescue. That was these kids having an out-of-character moment as they finished up the game. It explains the odd structure of Super Mario 64, where your supposed enemies would give you hints and clues to how to beat them, and Bowser seemingly gave the precious superstars to just random people rather than hoarding him for himself, despite the fact that the main mechanic of the game is carrying multiple superstars, and therefore it's clearly possible to do so. The game was a scavenger hunt around one of the kids' houses or some such thing, explaining the entire finding stars in paintings mechanic. Maybe they hid little paper stars behind picture frames throughout the house, or some similar thing. And of all things, it explains the completely sweet and innocent, sexless romance between Mario and Princess Peach, which I know is a weird thing to dwell on. But these characters are both adults, and this is Nintendo we're talking about. It's not as if they haven't been known to sneak some age-inappropriate content into their games where they didn't think kids would notice it before. And yet there's really no hint at anything more than just a super innocent, almost childlike romance between Mario and Peach, suggesting that their story is being told through the lens of a child's mind. I know this is a really weird take on this theory, and I know it's a really weird theory to think about in the first place, because the obvious reason for all these quirks is that it's a game series where they don't care that much about the story. But that's the real world reason. I want an in-universe reason, and I think this answers a lot of questions that trying to create an in-universe explanation for all of these things brings to the surface. That said though guys, as per usual, I'd like to know, what did you think of this theory? Did I stick the landing, or did my leaps in logic come up short? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord. Link in the description. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.